Understanding your role in Overwatch 2 is one of the most important elements in the game. In today's video, I'm going to be giving an in-depth guide on each role and how they are supposed to be played. This not only is going to help you understand how your main role is supposed to be played, but also in general how the game should flow. The first thing I want to address before we get into anything, come on fellas, I know we can do better than that. So starting off with the tank role, arguably the most important and hardest role in Overwatch 2. Not only is there only one of you, it's because there is so many things that go into playing this role correctly. I would say it's on the easier side of being mechanically simple, but it's definitely strategically the hardest. So the passive of tanks is getting reduced knockback, which can be useful on maps such as Liang Tower where there is the bridge. You also have less ult generated by healing and damage received by other players. So tanks have high health and survivability. They act as a disruptor role for the team in which they create space to allow your team to progress forward. Creating space is going to be your bread and butter of the tank position. Without the tank, it's very hard to progress forward and take objectives. As a tank, you want to be the front line for your teammates, always being mindful of where the rest of your teammates are, and especially your supports. If I can give one big tip is to be aware of your surrounding. Not only is this going to allow you to position correctly, knowing where everybody is, it makes it easy in team fights to understand what is going on. If you know where everybody on your team and the enemy team is, it allows you to make informed decisions on what you're going to do next. This could be whether you peel for your teammates or you want to jump in and make a play. One of the biggest problems I see new tank players make is that they just want to W key into the enemy team. This cuts off the line of sight for your supports, which allows you to not be healed. Another way to counteract this is to communicate with your teammates, guys. If you want to jump in and engage, please turn on your microphone and let your team know you're going in. This allows them to actually follow up with your play instead of having to guess what you're going to be doing. I promise you, if you communicate with your teammates, you will climb. And another key point of being a great tank player is knowing when to switch accordingly. For example, if the enemy team is playing Roadhog, more than likely you shouldn't be playing Winston. This is because Roadhog makes the game very hard to play for the Winston player. So these are matchups as a tank player that you're going to have to understand to know when to switch or not. By knowing all the correct matchups to play and when each character is good, it allows you to more easily play your life in different situations. As a tank player, since there is only one of you, it's very important to play your life and not overextend and die. If you die quickly, the rest of the team fight will be extremely hard for the rest of your team. So as a tank, you should primarily be looking to generate space, create survivability for the rest of your team, engage team fights, and also communicate. Tanks should always be the first one in, initiating the team fight and creating space for the rest of your team. Next, we're going to move on to the DPS role. The DPS passive grants reload speed on kill, with their primary role being to find final blows, soften up tankier targets, deal damage, and setting up strong ultimates for getting multiple frags. As a DPS player, you should always be looking to utilize high grounds and deal as much safe damage as possible. Now, what do I mean by safe damage? Safe damage is giving out damage without taking any in return. DPS characters tend to be a little bit more mechanically challenging, so I recommend playing easier characters such as Junkrat and Soldier 76. One of the key aspects that makes a successful DPS player is their target priority. As a DPS player, you should always be focusing the biggest threat first. Now, this could be a Winston jumping in on your backline, in which you should deal damage to him to force him out of the fight. But if this is not happening, a good rule of thumb is always to hit the supports whenever possible. By hitting the supports, it forces them out of the team fight, which makes them less effective for the enemy team. In my opinion, this is the role that you will switch on the most. You have to understand what is working in certain team compositions and what isn't. For example, if I'm playing Pharah and the enemy team has 3 hit scans, sometimes I'll even switch off Pharah even if I have ultimate. This is because I know I'll get better value out of playing somebody like Genji, who is very effective into hit scan characters. Another thing that I don't see people really talk about is having synergy with your other DPS character. For example, some good combinations are Genji and Tracer that are good at diving together and finishing off each other's targets, or another combo is use Junkrat and Soldier 76. Junkrat can use his grenade to boop up enemy targets, while Soldier finishes them off in the air. Now, I know in lower elos you might not get the best DPS partner, so in that situation, all I can recommend is playing a character that is good in almost every situation. When I was personally climbing through the ranks, I would just play Soldier 76 because he can hit almost anything, and people aren't really that good at Genji in low elo, which is one of Soldier's biggest counters. Guys, I really want you to understand that Overwatch is really about good team compositions. If you're playing the correct characters in certain situations, more than likely you'll win the game. Now, I just made an entire video on how to carry with the DPS role, so I'll link that above and also in the comment section. Your primary role as a DPS player should be dealing safe damage, getting final blows, help healing for your supports, harassing the enemy supports when they are in the open, and also back up your tank when they try to take space. Now moving on to the support position. Their passive is automatically healing over time, with their main function of assisting allies by healing them, boosting their damage, dealing damage when your team is healthy on HP, providing other utilities such as anti and Lucio speed boost. Now, as a support player, the onus is definitely on you to provide heals and utility for your teammates. Now, that's not to say this is the only thing you should be doing. You should also be looking to deal DPS when your team is full HP. You have to find a balance between the three of them. For example, sometimes it's better to use your utility like damage boost for your Pharah or Soldier 76, which can be much more beneficial than just keeping them alive. Now, the thing about supports is they have a little bit more mobility than other characters in the game, except for the likes of Zenyatta plus Ana. However, it might come in the form of some utility such as Ana's sleep or Zenyatta's kick with his melee. Now, this is good to escape bad situations and try to stay alive for your teammates. Now, as a support, you have the highest priority life. If the enemy team has any brain at all, they should be focusing you guys first. Now, this makes it much harder to stay alive in team fights because in general, you're going to be focused first. This is where having good positioning comes into play. You should always be positioning behind your tanks and DPS to stay in the very back of the team fight. The longer you're able to stay alive in a team fight and dish out utility, heals, and DPS, the more likely it is to win more games. Just think about it. If you lose one support, that's half of your healing and utility and a little bit of DPS in a team fight. To be honest, if your teammates are complaining that they're not getting heals, chances are they're just positioning too far forward. But again, that's also up to you to communicate with your teammates and let them know that you can't see them where they're currently positioning. Positioning on support is the most important thing that you can do to climb on this role. This is because you can provide such crazy value if you can just stay alive and position correctly. This makes it a lot harder for the enemy team to kill your teammates, and like the other two roles, learning when to switch on support is very important also because providing a lot of utility for your teammates will benefit you in different situations. For example, if the enemy team has a Roadhog, it's better to go Ana or Zenyatta to help burst down the Roadhog. Supports that provide great utility, immaculate heals, and are evasive to the enemy team makes it very hard for the enemy team to do anything against you. I'm curious to know what role you guys made. Let me know in the comments down below. If you found this video useful, make sure to subscribe. It's free and you can always unsubscribe at any time. My name is Halzeey and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.